Welcome back to Andersen Acres. Today we're talking about something that every single duck keeper dreads. What to do when one of our ducks gets sick. Whether you're raising ducks for eggs, companionship, or just because they waddle around like little goofballs, it's heartbreaking and sometimes scary when one of them isn't acting right. So in this video, we're diving into what you really need to know when a duck falls ill, how to keep the rest of your flock safe, and why jumping straight to the feed store meds might not be your best move, depending on what's going wrong. So let's get into it. So recognizing illness in ducks, we went through this in the previous video, but we're just going to quickly touch on it again because the first step is always observation. Ducks are prey animals, which means they're great at hiding symptoms, sometimes until it's too late. So, just some basic things you might want to pay attention to so that you notice when something goes wrong. They might be sleeping more than usual, or they might be exceedingly lethargic. They might not be eating like normal. Maybe they have unusual poop. Maybe they've got labored breathing, or they're wheezing a little bit, they're limping, or they have some difficulty walking. They might have isolated themselves from the rest of the flock when they tend to be a really social duck. They might have like discharge from their eyes or their nose, or there might be some swelling or even some drooping of the wings. If something seems off, trust your gut. It's better to overreact a little than underreact and lose a bird. So, the first thing you want to do when you notice something's wrong, isolation and care immediately, okay? As soon as you notice symptoms, the most important thing you can do is isolate that duck from the rest of the flock. Contagious diseases spread really, really fast, okay? Especially in enclosed areas, especially if you keep your ducks in a coop, they are going to get sick really fast because it's just going to circulate amongst all of them. So set up a warm, dry, quiet space like a dog kennel or a small animal cage with clean bedding. Make sure your sick duck has fresh water, electrolytes, easy access to food. Keep noise and stress to a minimum because this will all give your ducks the best chance to recover and prevent stress from weakening their immune system further. Now, what about contagious versus non-contagious problems? Okay, not all duck diseases are contagious. For example, fungal infections caused by moldy bedding, they themselves may not be contagious. It's not spreading from bird to bird, but they could get it from the environment. They are getting it from the environment. So it might be limited to one or two ducks. On the flip side, there are things like avian influenza and duck viral enteritis that are highly contagious and can wipe out your entire flock in days. Okay? That's why early isolation and identifying what's going on is so important. If two ducks get sick close together with similar symptoms, that's a red flag. Something's up. And if you're seeing symptoms like nasal discharge or neurological issues, that's a big deal. If you can, get a vet involved. Now, not everyone can get a vet involved. One, because ducks are often livestock. Not everyone treats their ducks as pets, so not everyone will want to rush their ducks to the vet. But also, a lot of areas don't have a vet that can see ducks. Okay, there's a heck of a lot of places just go, we won't treat ducks because they don't know much about ducks. Waterfowl and even poultry, even your chickens and stuff, there's not a lot of vets that deal with them just because most people don't want them to. So try if you can, but frankly, you may not be able to get a vet. So you might be on your own. Okay? So if you are lucky enough to get your hands on a vet, okay, if you can find one, use them. However, you do want to kind of stop and think, even if you can't use a vet. Okay? I know it's tempting to run to the farm supply store and grab antibiotics or dewormers or whatever they have, but you need to take a moment and assess the actual situation because antibiotics don't cure viral infections, okay? Dewormers don't cure viral infections. Wrong medications can do more harm than good, and using antibiotics when they're not going to help you are actually causing antibiotic resistance and making it harder to treat flocks. So don't immediately go, well, I'm going to grab this, this, and this. I'm just going to throw the whole shebang at it and hope it takes care of it. Because one, you don't know what you're dealing with. Two, you're making it worse later on when your birds have resistance. So stop and think, because giving the wrong treatment could make things worse or even kill your birds, okay? If you can call a vet to figure it out, that's great. If you can't, you're going to have to do some investigating on your own. Sometimes you can get a vet on the phone and do like a phone consult, but again, not all vets will do it. If they will, that's great, but again, not everyone has access to that. So some vets are happy to give advice based on symptoms, especially for ducks and chickens, because they're not going to see them anyway. They're not going to come out. But if you can't, you're going to have to do some internet research. You're going to have to grab that book you got on ducks to help identify what's wrong with them. You might even turn to internet discussion boards. But remember that if you think it's a disease like a bacteria or a virus and someone is telling you, well, just give them ivermectin, well, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay, you do need to make sure you're identifying what's wrong. And this is where some experience, or even like if you have a microscope, you can identify if it is a parasite infection, a parasite, because you'll be able to look at it under a microscope. So you will find over time you get better at diagnosing, at figuring it out, but at first it's going to be tough. Okay. So if your vet specifically tells you to treat the whole flock, do it. Otherwise, I would treat the ones who are sick, unless you know what it is and you know that everybody has it. I would only treat the ones that are showing symptoms, because treating the ones who aren't sick yet doesn't help. Okay, so my approach is I tend to only treat the ones that are presenting with illness, unless my vet actually tells me, hey, I know exactly what it is. This is the virus we're dealing with, or this is the bacteria, or this is the parasite, and everyone's going to have it, and you need to treat everybody. So my advice is don't treat the whole flock unless the whole flock is showing symptoms. So let's talk about a first aid kit that might help you on your way to treating your birds. So I like having electrolyte powder. You can get Save a Chick or poultry specific brands. You can mix your own, whatever you prefer. Poultry safe probiotics, thermometer in case you really have no idea what the temperature is of that bird and you want to figure out if they're too high, if the temperature's too low, you want to figure it out. You'll need a thermometer. Epsom salts, these are good for foot soaks. Ducks tend to be prone to bumblefoot, so if your problem is bumblefoot, you can soak their foot. Syringe or a dropper for oral fluids, even if you're not administering medication, sometimes you have to forcibly make them drink water if they're sick because they don't want to drink, and if they don't drink water, they're going to die. So sometimes you have to forcibly force them to have water. You might want to have some kind of rinse for the eyes, like a saline rinse or something like that. Poultry safe wound spray, not the blue stuff. That stuff hurts and it's not good for poultry anyway. So not that stuff, but a poultry safe wound spray. There's several different brands you can get. You want clean towels and spare bedding in case you suddenly have to strip the entire coop and get rid of the bedding because that's your problem. You want some activated charcoal in case the problem is they ingested something bad, they ate something poisonous, because having all these things ready means you're not scrambling when your ducks need you. Okay, hello, mister. Hello, Lucky. You're such a good boy, Lucky. Yes, Lucky's a boy. He's a very pretty boy. Hi, Lucky. Thank you. So, when to call a vet if you even can. Again, a lot of people can't. Not every bird illness is going to be a disaster. Okay, so you don't necessarily need to be alarmist and every time your duck looks weird, you have to call the vet. That's not true. Sometimes it's just sauerkraut or stress reaction and they just need to relax, or it's a minor injury like bumblefoot. Like, I don't need a vet to treat bumblefoot. I've done it dozens of times. Bumblefoot is easy. So you don't always need to have a vet. But what you should do is make sure you are being quick to act and observing carefully so you can kind of figure out when you might want to call the vet. okay? Because quick observation and quick reactions can make the difference between recovery and death, okay? So if your duck's condition is getting worse, if nothing you are doing is making it better, if you can, that's when you call a vet, okay? If they can't stand up, if more birds keep getting sick no matter what you do, that's when you want to get help. Even if you don't have a poultry vet in your area, you might be able to get the help from another duck keeper in your area. See, like, this is why I talk so much about forming community, because when you're forming community, you can at least know who in your area has ducks and has dealt with ducks for decades. If you don't have a vet, maybe you have someone down the road, someone you can call. An experienced duck keeper will know a lot, and in some cases they'll know more than vets, because a lot of vets have never treated a duck or a chicken. So if you do not have a poultry vet in your area, nobody will see birds. See who around you who raises ducks and who's been through the ringer with them a few times, because if you can, they might be your best resource. Okay, living rurally, sometimes you simply cannot find a vet to treat your animal. I get that, but because other people know that too, your community might have someone who knows at least enough to help you get past the worst of it. So build a community in your area, find out who can help you. That is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to nurse a sick duck back to health, or if you've got tips, something you might want to add to the first aid kit, a couple of little hints and tips for other viewers. Every little bit helps when we share amongst ourselves. Let's build a community here, and hopefully we can help each other. We'll see you tomorrow.